Welcome to Mind Love, episode 327. Today's episode is all about From Resistance to Flow, how human design guides us to live in alignment.
With human design, everything that's in there, like we can look at our core talent in business, we can look at the way we're designed to be in relationship, we can look at our purpose, we can dive into what drives us, what motivates us, we can understand how our food, our body digests our food. Like there's so much that we can do in there. However, the important thing to understand is all we're really doing is bringing ourselves into authenticity, bringing ourselves into our truth. And when we do that, what happens is every area of our life will improve. So even if you think you're super happy at that job doing that thing and you're going to stay there forever, if you start to dive into your design and bring yourself into alignment and heal the things that are blocking you from being in your authenticity, who knows what you're going to want?
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
If this is your first time giving your mind a little love, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Mind love is a habit, and the more you give your mind that love and intention, the better you'll feel about yourself and your life. Plus, it's really a win-win because more subscribers means Mind Love attracts even more amazing guests to bring you their wisdom. So don't forget to subscribe. Have you ever wondered why some areas of your life just flow effortlessly, while other areas feel like a constant struggle? Or here's a level up question. Do you even have the self-awareness to know which areas these are? I do now, but I can't say that I always have. And truthfully, sometimes I still blur it all together until something triggers me to step back and just notice. There have been times where I felt like I'm just wandering through life, trying to figure out which way to go. It's like being in this big, confusing maze. There's so many choices, and it's tough to know which path is really even mine. But imagine for a moment, what if there was a blueprint, a roadmap that could offer insights into your unique strengths and who you truly are? Think about it. Life's full of decisions, and sometimes we just pick away and hope for the best. It can be a bit of a wild ride, figuring things out as we go. But what if you could get a sneak peek into who you really are? Sure, we all have to work through stuff, but having a guide can help make the journey smoother, and most importantly, help you walk it with confidence. That way you're not always second guessing. Am I on the right path? Is this what I should be doing? Allowing all those doubts to be a roadblock to your biggest dreams. Well, this is where human design steps in. It's more than just a gradual process of self-awareness that unfolds over the years. Human design acts like a compass, pointing you toward a deeper understanding of what makes you uniquely you. It's like having a map in hand that highlights your strengths, uncovers your challenges, guides you on how to navigate life most effectively. With human design, it's less about stumbling around in the dark and more about walking confidently with a bright light showing you the way. It's about realizing that you don't have to do things like everyone else. It helps you find your own special way of doing things, your own kind of success. Human design helps you line up with what feels right and flow along with life's rhythm, helping you make choices that feel good deep down in your heart and soul, which then helps you navigate the world in a way that starts to feel effortless. Our guest today is Emma Dunwoody. She's a qualified master coach and human behavioral specialist who wakes people up to the power within them using her unique method of transformational human design. Her vision is to take human design mainstream, to inspire everyone to unlock their inner wisdom, take their power back, and feel deeply confident in the decisions they make. So 3 key things we will learn are why 95% of your behavior is hidden from you, and learn how to bring awareness to transform your life. How letting go can lead to more self-acceptance, and how aligning mindset, identity, beliefs, and behaviors with your human design can unleash your true potential. And now let's welcome Emma Dunwoody to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So I'm really excited to talk to you because we just did a little human design session yesterday, and it was so helpful. I've done two before, years apart, but I haven't gotten into it as much as I want to. And every time I have a session, I'm like, this is so amazing. I need to learn. But it seems like a lot of memorization. How did you get into human design?
Yeah, well, yes, there's a lot to remember. For me personally, literally without realizing, I followed my design. So I'm a manifesting generator, emotional authority, 3-5 profile. So ultimately, someone just brought it to me one day and I responded to it and I started experimenting with it. Being where I was in my journey at that stage, I had spent 15 years learning all about human behavior, becoming a master coach, building a business, understanding the brain, because I had to heal my own mental health. Like I was diagnosed with depression and panic disorder, told I was going to just have to live with it for the rest of my life. And that just wasn't good enough for me. So I'd spent 15 years really understanding why I do what we do, what I do, why everyone else does what they do, understanding human behavior. And I got to this point in my life that I was like, wow, I've healed my mental health. I've transformed my life. I'm now doing the work I know I'm here to do. Like I ticked all these metaphorical boxes, yet I still felt empty inside. There was still something missing. And that's really when human design turned up for me. And I started running my experiment. Although the behavioralist in me was a little bit like, I'm not sure about this, but I was willing to run the experiment. And that part of me that I felt was missing was very quickly filled up. And I'm really grateful to say I get to live this extraordinary life every day, doing what I love and really making an impact in the world. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
Well, before we get into some of the specifics around human design, it's been a while since we've done an episode that's touched on this subject. So can you give people who aren't familiar a brief overview of what human design even is and where it came from?
Yeah, sure. So human design is a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. It actually was like A Course in Miracles. It was channeled through a guy called Ra Uru Hu, and that happened in 1987. So it's really, really new. And there are so many, that's why so many people are kind of diving into it now and creating their own interpretations because it's brand new. Like if we think about something like astrology, it's been around for thousands of years, whereas human design, although astrology is a part of human design, this is very, very new. So human design brings together Western astrology, the I Ching, which is the Chinese book of changes. And the reason why this is important is that, this has always been used as a divination tool, but when we go a little bit deeper, we understand that the I Ching is this 64 ways that humans can change and transform. Now, we also know, and this is the beauty of human design, that it crosses into the world of science. We also now know that these 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, which are the 64 gates of our human design chart, they've now been mapped back to the human genetic codon. So we start to see how human design is bringing modern science in with this ancient wisdom. It also includes the Kabbalah tree of life, the flow of the flow of energy within the human aura, and then, of course, the chakra system. So these are our energy centers. And human design synthesizes all of this together mathematically to give you your energetic blueprint. So I always love to explain it because as I'm certified, I've worked a lot with behavioral and personality profiling tools like e-disc profiling or Myers-Briggs, and I know Enneagram's really big right now. It's kind of like those, but instead of us using our mind to determine what our results and outcome is for each one of those tests, if you like, this is actually our energetic blueprint. So it's a reading taken from the moment we were born and approximately 3 months before we were born to give us really what's going on deep within us, like within our DNA, to give us this roadmap, if you like, to our rule book for the game of life, really.
My brain paused on 64 because I'm not sure if it was in our session yesterday, if you brought this up or if it came up earlier this week, but I was reminded of Richard Rudd's 64 gene keys. And I have the book, and that's another one of those ideas or concepts that I've been meaning to dive into, but you flip through and it's just a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
What does that have So this 64 seems like kind of a magical number that's just integrated into our humanity.
Yeah, and it is. It's because it really maps back. And the gene keys is, so the way the gene keys plugs into human design, if you like, is that originally this guy, Ra Uruhu, he was Canadian. He basically brought all of this to Canada and the States. I mean, he was based in Ibiza, so he kind of covered all of this area. And at one point, there was this young English guy who was doing all this work with human design, which was Richard Rudd. And Richard Rudd went over to the UK and launched human design over there. But inevitably, he was like, oh, there's something bigger. And so he actually ended up like human design, like A Course in Miracles, channeling through all of this information that then became the gene keys. And the gene keys is just a deeper dive into what we call the gates in human design, but he calls the gene keys. And really, it's about switching on our superpowers. That's really what it's all about, and about understanding that we have to work through our shadows or our fears or these challenges in our life, and really as we work through these challenges that we access our potential, we access our gift. So they're all completely intertwined. And in my work, like I work with a methodology that I call transformational human design. So I bring all the transformational coaching in with human design and the gene keys, as if there wasn't enough in there already.
So when you talk about these 64 gates, how is that interpreted? What does that mean to us?
Yeah, great. So the gates themselves, I like to think of them as these specific themes that lie within us. Okay, so if we were talking about personality profiling, we'd be saying, well, these are your strengths and this is where you're going to shine and this is the way you learn and this is the way you're going to react in a relationship. So the actual gates, they really point out where our superpowers are, where we're going to want to focus our energy, how potentially we're going to be stopped and blocked, because each one of them has a challenge or a shadow or a fear associated with it. So the gates themselves really give us this detailed nuance of what's going on inside of us. And what I think is so powerful about this, and I hear this a lot in the communities that I run and the groups that I run, is that so often when we get into our human design, it's like, wow, I would never have actually languaged this. I would never have actually focused on, for me, for example, one of my absolute superpowers is community. Now, I would never have focused on community itself. I would have just been like, yeah, wow, look, all my communities that I'm building, they're really great. But I wouldn't have put extra energy into it because I wouldn't have, my mind wouldn't have been so attached to that, because the way we succeed is by doing this, that, and the other. So I would be way too busy out there looking at the world out there, trying to model out there, instead of going, wow, so my superpower is actually, with my clients, is all about breakthrough. Again, something that I wouldn't necessarily have been able to hone down to such a specific point. And now in my work, it's what keeps getting shown, reflected back to me. People that work with me, they become empowered. They step into their power. They have a massive breakthrough, and they find the community that they've been looking for forever. And these three things are like some of my predominant energies within my design. So the gates really start to get us accessing this energy. That quote, like, we have all the answers within us. Well, the gates help us really access them, as opposed to going, I know I can feel it's in there, but how do I actually get it out of me?
So give me an example of something that you learned about yourself when you dove into your human design chart that just isn't something that you'd normally find in a personality test, or something that gave you an insight that was surprising.
Yeah. So look, there were so many of them. The first one for me that just changed my life was understanding that I'm a manifesting generator. And that means that I'm a non-linear being, because my entire life I'd felt like I was a quitter or I was lazy, that I would go and learn something new and then I would drop it so fast to move on to something else. Or I would be constantly juggling, a sport and, learning something. Or I was always finding myself multi-passionate and moving from one thing to the next, could never get through an entire book, all of those sort of things. And the world that I was trained in before human design was like, consistency is key. You have to find something and stick to it. And I remember being at school and going through, career counseling in the last couple of years of school, and this whole concept of me picking something, going to university and doing that for the rest of my life, it made me sick to the stomach. Like, it was something that just felt so wrong for me. Yet I tried so hard to fit into that box. So straight away off the bat, understanding that I was a non-linear being, that I'm designed to jump all over the place, that there'll get a point in my life, which happened at about 40, 42, where I could look back and look at all the things that I'd done and go, wow, look how they all perfectly fit together. I mean, even now, working with my transformational human design model is the perfect example of an MG, because what I've done is I've worked through all the things that don't work. I've thrown out all the bits that don't matter, and I've put all the bits that do matter, that are powerful, together. So the jumping all over the place was really powerful. So yeah, and that's just type, let alone all the other things. My profile completely changed my life. Really understanding that as a line 3, I'm here to experiment with everything, to get messy, understand that I'm here to like scuff my knees and bruise my elbows and just have fun with the whole adventure of life instead of perfectionism, because we're so conditioned to be perfect and get it right and I'm just not designed that way. So really giving me the freedom to make a mess, to be a little bit all over the place, to be way too much, because an MG, we can be way too much because we've got a lot of energy. And when we walk into the room, people know that we've walked into the room. So yeah, they were some of the really simple but profound shifts that really impacted my life.
Before we go deep today, I want to give you a little gift, and I want to give it to you every single day. It's called the Morning Mind Love. I know how life can be. You're all fired up after an inspiring episode, and then a new day or a new challenge comes at you, and it's just hard to keep up that energy. Well, the Morning Mind Love is kind of like an oracle from your higher self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, when you sign up, you get 2 free gifts, a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. And it's all completely free. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up, or text the word morning to 33777. You know what's funny? We spend so much time feeding our minds, reading books, listening to podcasts, learning new things, but then we grab whatever's convenient to feed our bodies. And I get it. Life is busy, and sometimes a drive-through feels like the only option. But that's why I take Field of Greens. It's a greens powder made with whole organic fruits and vegetables. No extracts, no lab-made stuff, and just 1 scoop a day gives you simple, real nutrition. Field of Greens feeds your body with fruits and vegetables medically chosen to support your heart, vital organs, and immune system. And let me tell you something. Since I started taking it, I've noticed these little changes that show me how nutrient depleted I must have been before. Like the ridges in my nails, gone. My sleep, so much better. And my stomach just feels happy. You know that dreaded afternoon crash that has you reaching for more coffee or sugary snacks? Well, that's not happening for me anymore. When your body is actually nourished, it runs so much better. I've tried other greens powders before, but Field of Greens is genuinely different. The quality is next level, and you can taste it. It's become my go-to, especially on those days when my eating isn't exactly Instagram worthy, because we all have those days, right? And here's the thing. They are so confident that you'll love it too, that they offer a 100% money-back guarantee. That's how much they believe in their product. So I got you 15% off your first order and free rush shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code MINDLOVE. That's promo code MINDLOVE at fieldofgreens.com. fieldofgreens.com. Yeah, I felt a lot of freedom when I first understood. Well, actually, every time I learn about it, I understand it in another layer deeper. But I remember hearing the concept of like allowing things to come easily for me. It just made a whole lot of sense. It's funny, I know a lot of people have almost guilt when things come easy for them. I never had that. I never really got it. I'm like, it's not my problem things are hard for you. But I thought that was almost pressure for me to do more so I could find something that's a challenge. Because I'm like, why am I wading in the shallow end of the pool type thing? But that is really how so many of my big life moves have gone. And how I've sort of explained it to myself before I knew my human design type is that I thought, well, maybe now I'm in alignment. And so that's why things are coming easily to me. Because a lot of the times that things started coming easily, I did spend the time to figure out which area I wanted to be in. For example, when I started my podcast, I grew it really quickly. I also do have a background in marketing. I also was very confident in the idea this time because I did the work to figure out what my perfect day looked like, how I wanted to help. Like I journaled for weeks figuring out what my ideal role would be. And so I was like, okay, this is why this is sticking. And so I do think that played a part in it, but to also learn that my human design type, that's how I'm supposed to be working. I'm not supposed to be a pusher, as I like to call it. I'm supposed to just focus on my alignment and then allow the opportunities to flow. So even just that freedom, so I could get off my own case or I could take the pressure off of myself, allowed me to flow a little bit more freely.
Yeah. And, I love hearing this because you're aligned too. Like things are meant to be easy for you. My youngest son's aligned too. And one of the most frustrating thing is going surfing as a family with this kid because he never goes, he never practices, but it doesn't matter what board he rides, what wave is out there on the day, he just nails it. And that's the line two thing. The line two thing, just you have to focus on the things that come easily. And yes, of course, you've also done the work. You've done the work with the mindset, getting your focus clear because our supercomputer between our ears is so incredibly powerful. However, if we can first understand our design, then align the supercomputer, our mindset, our identity, our beliefs, our behaviors to our human design, then everyone lives in a flow state. It's also that understanding that in many cases, wherever we feel really challenged and we spend so much time trying to fix that thing that we feel really challenged about, the truth is, in so many cases, you're just out of authenticity. You're out of integrity of who you are. It's not that you need to change or fix or do something. It's actually that you need to honor who you are. And what I mean by this is an example I just had on my mastermind recently. We'd just done Gates Week, and one of the ladies is like, well, I just feel like I'm in fear all the time, and everything comes back to this fear and this rejection, and she was really like baffled by it. And she's a line 4 in her profile. And I said to her, but what if all of these rejections as a line 4, they were gifts from the universe saying that's the wrong person for you? Because a line 4, their stability in life is within the relationships that they make. Like everything is about the relationships and the people that they have. And in that moment, she was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. When you say it that way, it's as clear as day that all of these, what my brain, my ego was telling me were rejections, were actually like, that's a pass. It's a no. Like that's not where I want to go. That's not the person I want to help or serve. That's not who I am. They're not my people. And I think with human design, this is where we start to understand, oh my God, I've been trying to fix myself and there's nothing to fix. I'm just expressing it through fear instead of expressing it through that higher love potential.
That's so interesting. One of my main messages that I always come back to is how to use your limitations as guideposts, where so often we're like, oh my gosh, the door shut on me, so now I'm just stuck where I am. And it's like, people think they want more options, but then often you're stuck in analysis paralysis. However, when you start to narrow it down, which is what I look at it now, it's like, it feels disappointing at first, but then it's like, well, thank you, universe, for making this choice a lot easier for me. I guess I'm going to go over here. And that's kind of how I got into entrepreneurship. I realized there were a bunch of reasons why the doors to regular corporate world just felt closed to me. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to make this work. And I see that now where I likely would have given up if certain doors hadn't closed. I would have thought, well, entrepreneurship's a little bit too hard. I'll just go back to what's comfortable. But I didn't give myself that option. That option wasn't even really given to me. So I stuck with it. And not to say that it was super difficult. The difficult thing was that first couple of years when I was trying to figure out where to invest my energy, what to create, and finding clarity, I'm going to use air quotes there, in all the wrong places because I wasn't actually finding clarity. I was like, okay, well, what do I think could make money? What are other people doing? what is exciting in this very moment versus really figuring out what's going to align with my superpowers and who I am.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest challenge most of us have. We're so conditioned to look external of ourselves. I realized really early on when I was training to become a master coach, I remember having this epiphany of like, oh my God, the entire world goes external to go internal. So what that means is that we go out there looking for what we want. And yes, of course, we need to be inspired and we need to see evidence and all of those things. However, we never ask ourselves first, what do I want? Who am I? What feels good for me? And I feel like that's the point, is that human design gives us that opportunity to just dive into, as Socrates says, like, know thyself. This is where we need to begin. And then we go external, because if we understand and we follow our human design, and I love that you said, clarity in all the wrong places, because you're an emotional authority. So clarity itself, you're never going to have crisp clarity. However, if you know how to work with your strategy and authority, you don't need it. No one needs it. Because what does clarity actually mean? Clarity means that your mind, your ego, needs certainty. That means that on some level, you want to control your external reality, which means you don't have internal certainty, which is what we all want. Because when we really have internal certainty, we might have this future vision of, okay, well, I know for me, one of my driving forces since I was really little was like, I want to understand my potential, my greatness, and I want to have an impact. I want to leave the world better than I found it. And sometimes those simple three things have been, which are in my design, by the way. Obviously, I was aligned to these things way before I ever came to my human design. But even these three things are enough when I have strategy and authority, because I'm like, I know how they feel. And as long as I know how they feel, then my strategy and authority is going to guide me there. And I'm never going to get attached. I'm never going to not take aligned action because I don't have clarity. Because at the moments that I feel like I don't have 100% clarity, well, I'm just going to trust my internal guidance system and the way that the universe guides me, because what I can't see, something greater than me can. And that's that ultimate trust. That's internal certainty. That's that, okay, well, I'm pretty confident I'm going in this direction. I've done all my future self work. I've, changed my identity. I've addressed my beliefs and I'm healing my trauma. I'm doing all the things, but I'm also not attached to exactly what I need to do and be and all of those things, because I'm trusting the process that is unfolding in front of me. And I think that, and ultimately, the most important job every single one of us on the planet has to do is to love, trust, and accept ourselves. Because if we can love, trust, and accept ourselves, like internal, then we can only manifest that externally. So ultimately, all the things that we want, the money, the love, the career, the impact, the health, the vitality, all of those things will come when we love, trust, and accept ourselves, when we allow ourselves to be guided from our internal wisdom and the universe, when we allow those things to unfold in front of us and we follow this wisdom, then, what unfolds in my life and my experience is so much better than I could ever have imagined for myself.
So let's go back a second and cover the main manifesting or the main human design types for people that aren't familiar with human design.
Yep. Okay. So when we come to human design, we always start with type. And the reason why we start with type is because this is kind of the first group that we get put in, and we understand our strategy. So our overarching theme and our strategy. Our strategy is the way the universe communicates to us. It's like our little North Star. Like if we keep following that thing, our authority, which is our internal guidance system, will respond to that thing. And it's like this communication loop that's constantly happening. So we have the 5 types. The first of the 5 types is the manifestor. Manifestors are here to inspire people into action. These are people who as kids, they were confident, they knew who they were, they knew where they were going, they knew what they wanted. And oftentimes that was really uncomfortable for the adults around them. So they got controlled and shut down and all of those things. So they become people pleasers. But ultimately, the manifestor is someone who they're going to spark new things. They're going to be the trailblazers. They're going to kick things off. They're the person that's like, I was just thinking about this thing And the moment they share this thing, everyone wants to get on it or they're not interested because they have this energy of being quite polarizing. Manifestors have their people that they're here to inspire into action. And then the people that don't get them, like Johnny Depp's a manifestor. If you think about someone like that, you either love him or you hate him. It's kind of that kind of energy. So yeah, they just have to be unapologetically themselves because they're literally sparking the new things in the world. The next type is a generator. A generator is here to build. They're the ones that are here to be inspired into action. They're the ones that, unfortunately, in the past, they're the ones that have worked their butts off out of obligation. They just work really hard because they can. And what happens is they completely destroy their life force energy. And their life force energy is their guide. It's the thing that's telling them what they're here to do, here to be, here to build. So a generator is very magnetic. And when they're following what lights them up, specifically the work that lights them up, then they become very magnetic, very attractive to other people, and people want to learn from them. They want to hear from them. Now, their strategy is all about being in response. So one of the challenges is that the manifestor is the only one that's really here to initiate. The rest of us, and that's like less than 10% of the global population, the rest of us are all here to respond in some way. So generators are here to respond. So let's say they're lit up by human design, for example, then they follow that. And every day, every moment almost, the universe is going to be bringing them things to respond to. So if it's their work, they'll just be, it might be particular business models, it might be topics, it might be people, it might be all sorts of things, but constantly these generator types are in response. They go to the refrigerator, they open the refrigerator, they're in response to the things that are sitting there in front of them. And that's what they need to follow, because what their sacral, their gut is telling them is, yes, I have energy for this, or no, I don't. So every response is an uh-huh or an uh-uh. And if they follow the uh-huh and the things that light them up, then they have this huge capacity to build great things. Then we have the manifesting generator. The manifesting generator is a hybrid of the manifestor and the generator. So a lot of what I've said about both of them also applies to the MG. Now, the MG is, as I said, it's a non-linear being. These people also tend to be pretty superhuman. They're the people that are here to demonstrate human potential. However, they can feel like they're too much because they tend to have a lot of energy. They tend to be a little bit all over the place. But it's because they actually learn faster and get out quicker. So they're gathering information a lot faster than a lot of the other people. And they also can kind of put the bits together. Their strategy is also to be in response. Their strategy is also to inform, which is the manifestor. So they have the strategy of both the manifestor and the generator. So to inform and to respond. So again, they're constantly in response to life. So if they have an idea, so for me, for example, I had an idea, I had an inspiration to change the name of my podcast years ago, and to the Human Design podcast. Now, at the time, my ego was like, you can't do that. Oh my God, that's a terrible idea. Who are you? Imposter syndrome, the whole works. However, running my experiment, I just wrote it in my journal because it was just something internal, nothing external to respond to. Then the next day, I'm on a call to one of my mentors, and he literally says to me, you need to do a podcast on human design because there's no good ones out there. So I was like, wow, okay, this thing works. So waiting for that external thing to respond to. Then we have projectors. Projectors are our guide. These are people who, especially when you're one-on-one, like they can see deep into the way in which you're using your energy, and they can help you to make great efficiencies. They're the people that can see super deep into maybe you're doing the work that you are lit up to do, or maybe you're doing the work that you're not lit up to do, and so many more nuances. Ultimately, they're here to really guide how we can be more efficient with our energy. Then we have reflectors, which are only 1% of the global population. Sorry, I'm just going to go back. Projectors' strategy is to be invited. They're here to be seen, acknowledged, and valued for their wisdom. And when they see, value, and acknowledge themselves, then they will get invitations to contribute that wisdom to the world, to the group, to people, whatever that might be. And then finally, we have reflectors, who are 1% of the global population. They are our mirrors. They are literally reflecting back where a relationship, a group of people, a community, a family, a business, exactly where they're at. They're reflecting back all the energy, the life force energy, the mental energy, the wellness energy, all of it. They're reflecting all of it back so that we can really see the truth of what's going on. These people have an ability to see subtle energy that is extraordinary. Their strategy is to wait. They have to wait 28 days to make any big decisions. And that's really so they can get a feeling for the people and the places around them. And over time, they get their clarity for what feels good for them.
We're all searching for something better in life, right? Better habits, better mindset, better relationships. But when it comes to hiring, searching isn't always the best approach. Instead of searching, why not match? That's where Indeed comes in. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. It's your go-to matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors. Their matching engine helps you find quality candidates fast, and I mean really fast. Did you know that in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed worldwide? That's what I love about Indeed. It's like having a mindful hiring assistant. Instead of getting overwhelmed by endless resumes, you can schedule, screen, and message candidates all in one place. The platform actually learns your preferences, so the more you use it, the better it gets at finding people who align with your vision. And get this, 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. That's why more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide use Indeed to hire great talent fast. I just love that it keeps all of my hiring processes organized. I can do everything right there instead of having spreadsheets and notes and video call links. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/mindlove. Just go to Indeed.com/mindlove right now and support the show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/mindlove. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. I don't know why it took me so long to invest in good bedding. I resisted it for years, but something flipped in me about 3 years ago. And now I'm basically a pillow connoisseur. I've tried them all, and I get weirdly excited about good bedding. Because here's the thing, we spend a third of our lives in bed, and the quality of that time affects literally everything else, which is why I'm so excited to tell you about my latest obsession, Lagoon Sleep Pillows. What sets them apart is their matching system. You take a quick 2-minute quiz about your sleep style and your preferences, and then they match you with your perfect pillow. I was matched with their Otter pillow, and I am so impressed. Lately, I've just needed more support, and this seems to cradle me in all the right places. I'm also low-key obsessed with their travel pillow, which I use for way more than just travel. I actually hug it, use it as leg support, and of course, take it on trips with me. Well, the secret is in their adjustable fill. You can add or remove it to get that perfect alignment for your spine. A study even found that the right supportive pillow can improve sleep quality by 63%. And Lagoon lets you try their matched pillow for 100 nights risk-free. Free returns, no questions asked. Falling asleep has never been easier. I toss and turn less and just wake up feeling refreshed every morning. Go to lagoonsleep.com and take their awesome 2-minute sleep quiz to find your match. Use the code MIND for 15% off your first purchase. When I first got my human design type, this might sound silly, but I felt almost disappointed because I'm like, of course, doesn't everyone want to be a manifester? And then I could imagine, I think my husband ended up being a generator, and he's like, that doesn't sound that great. And then somebody else ended up being a projector, and they're like, projecting doesn't sound good. So how are your feelings on the different types, and do you often have people having reactions like that, and how do you respond?
Yeah, I love this. So yes is the simple answer. Yes, I have people doing this all the time. In fact, my own experience was the person who first brought human design to me was a projector, and he's going through everything, and you know, I worked out I'm a manifesting generator, and I'm like, I want to be a projector, you know, like, oh, you know what, responding and this and that. And so often people say to me, yeah, like I want to be something else, or that doesn't sound too good. And there's two things that are really important to focus on. Number one if you're getting this information from the original knowledge, the language is uber negative. It's so negative. So we have to be very conscious of that, especially for me. It's a big part of the work that I do addressing this piece, because behaviorally, we've got to be very careful about the language that we use and what we focus on. So ultimately, if you're looking or you're getting your information from a source that is really strictly rooted in the traditional human design, then it's going to be very negative language. So it's really not serving you. It's not like projectors aren't here walking around projecting all their crap onto people. That's not what's happening. Like manifestors are not the only ones that can manifest. So don't worry about any of those things. The second part, and this was the part that personally hit me between the eyes when it kind of dropped in for me, and then I could see it happening in all of my clients, was this is actually such a great example of how hard we resist ourselves. Because when we come to human design, if there's something specific that you resist about your chart, like I resisted being a line 3 so hard, because I was like, yeah, I had a belief system that's like I have to do things the hard way. So when I was told I'm a line 3, that I'm constantly experimenting through trial and error, I was like, oh God, you mean this never goes away? I thought that I would work all this stuff out and change my mindset and it would all go away. But the truth is it was just me resisting me, because now I'm a line 3. I still learn through trial and error, but I love it. I love the permission to get messy and to dive in. And, do I need to prepare? Nah, I'm just going to go and have an experience. I'm going to see what happens. And that's really in alignment with me. So one of the things I would say is whenever you get your human design, first thing you want to do is you want to notice what resonates with you. So this is your body, your internal guidance system telling you, yep, that feels true for me. Then you also want to pay attention to everything that you resist, because that's also another red flag. The things that you're resisting, in so many cases, they're just indicating the parts of you that you resist already. So they're the parts that need healing. Maybe there's trauma. Maybe there's low self-worth. Maybe there's belief systems that aren't serving you. And that needs to be addressed, because the truth is that once we let go of resistance, what happens? Flow state. We just need to redefine the meaning of so many of these things for ourselves, because, for example, with a projector, their signature is success. But what does success actually mean? Because the old school definition of success that so many of us have hustled our butts to tick that box and then gone, yeah, this doesn't feel like success to me, that doesn't work anymore. So we have to actually redefine a lot of these things for ourselves. And then once we do that and we heal the stuff within us, all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, this is absolutely my design. And I don't want to be anything else. I want to be exactly this. But it's a journey to get to that point.
I'm glad you brought that up, because so often people look at something like this and they think, okay, so another personality test to find my purpose, but I like my job, or my job's just fine, and I know I'm going to be here for years and years. I'm not trying to look for a new career, so how can this help me? What other areas of life do people work on when they're uncovering their human design types?
So I love this question, because at the end of the day, one of the NLP principles that I love is the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. Okay. So if you're struggling with something at work, you're going to be struggling with it elsewhere, whether you're paying attention to that or not. That's 95% of our behavior is unconscious. So you might even be unconscious to it. But the thing that is most important is that in many cases, especially with personal development, what we're doing is we're going, well, I want to find my purpose, or I want to manifest a new relationship, or whatever it is. And we're really focused on this one thing. And it's like going to the doctor and saying, I've got a cold. And they say, well, here's antibiotics, or whatever they give you, right? It's kind of the same thing. Like we're trying to be really focused on the one thing that we want to focus on. And we want to fix that one thing that we want to focus on. Whereas with human design, everything that's in there, like we can look at our core talent in business, we can look at the way we're designed to be in relationship, we can look at our purpose, we can dive into what drives us, what motivates us, we can understand how our body digests our food. Like there's so much that we can do in there. However, the important thing to understand is all we're really doing is bringing ourselves into authenticity, bringing ourselves into our truth. And when we do that, what happens is every area of our life will improve. So even if you think you're super happy at that job doing that thing and you're going to stay there forever, if you start to dive into your design and bring yourself into alignment and heal the things that are blocking you from being in your authenticity, who knows what you're going to want? Like maybe you'll wake up and realize that the job you're doing is just the safe bet that you've been conditioned to want by your parents, society, whatever it might be. And then as you go through this process, all of a sudden you start to wake up to the potential that lies within you, and you are willing to see that there's different opportunities out there. I mean, I've worked with so many people. One of my coaches in my HDX, which is my membership community, she was a teacher. She loved teaching. She did this thing because that's what her parents did. She was signed up to do her master's, but she was exhausted all the time. There were all these underlying, like, why doesn't this feel better than it does? I should be doing this and I'm doing all the right things, da, 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 da. She starts to dive into her human design and realizes that her love for education needs to be elsewhere, where she can influence, where she can guide, where she can use all her superpowers, as opposed to a system that she can't. So it took her in this whole big trajectory of moving out, like not doing her master's, which is one of the hardest things she'd ever done, is just turning it down, like going, actually, I'm not going to do it. Even though her parents are telling her to do it, even though everyone in her life is going, what are you doing? You're crazy. Now, today, she works in an environment on her own terms, working, nowhere near the hours she used to work, guiding and influencing people, feeling really like she's creating so much success on her own terms. And before human design, she didn't even know it was a thing. So I think that this is the thing that's so important with human design, is it's the key to unlock you. And if you're willing to go there, if you're willing to be on the journey and run the experiment, because human design is an experiment, it's not a dogma, then you will be blown away at the treasures that you'll find.
Earlier, you mentioned that I was an emotional authority.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? And is there an opposite of that in human design?
Yes. So not so much an opposite, but an emotional authority. We're nearly 50-50 of the global population, and we'll refer to people as being emotional or non-emotional. Now, as an emotional being, that means that you make your decisions when you have emotional clarity. And I always joke, like, we only ever have 86% clarity, okay? So as an emotional being, clarity really in our decisions really isn't going to ever be really crisp and clean. What you need to understand as an emotional being is that you're in this mechanical wave. You always have this mechanical wave that's moving through you. And that is constantly influencing the frame in which you see the world. Okay. So when you're in a high, the world is just brilliant. Like everything is fantastic. But when you're in a low, even the best day is going to look a bit crappy. And when we start to understand that that's always going, we start to realize that a lot of our unresourceful behavior, mindsets, beliefs, identity pieces, they've been made when we've been in an emotional low, and they're not true. It's almost like they're not true in the high either. It's where this place, in this magical place in the middle, where we make our best decisions. So one of the game changers for me, because I'm also an emotional authority, working in the whole behavioral world, master coach, okay, mindset, I just have to change my belief. And then all of a sudden my physiology will change, or I change my physiology and then I can change my mindset. Yeah, I can do this. Like Tony Robbins 101, right? But with an emotional authority, it just doesn't work that way. So you can change the belief system, you can change the physiology in your body. However, you're always going to have this mechanical wave, because the mechanical wave is not created by the thought, which is what we're taught. We're taught that all of our emotions, all of our feelings and emotions are created by our thoughts, and they're just not. They're, for 50% of us, they're not. So what does that mean? That means that we have to start attributing greater meaning to the lows, to the highs, to understanding that we are so lucky that we get to ride this emotional wave, to really know what the whole spectrum of emotion feels like, and almost simultaneously not give it too much weight. So an emotional authority is all about waiting. It's about giving yourself time. So let's say you have a big decision to make. It's going to come into your awareness. I like to think of it like it's kind of percolating there. But there's a part of you that's just like, not yet, don't know yet. And then all of a sudden, it's like green light. You just get this green light to go. And it doesn't feel like, oh my God, I've got to do it. Or, oh God, I can't be bothered doing it. It doesn't feel like that. It just feels like I've just got energy for this all of a sudden. Like, yep, this is the thing. So emotional authority is one of the authorities that you kind of just have to build the muscle. You have to get to know it. You have to get to know your emotional wave. When you're in your lows, you want to give it a better meaning. Like, okay, this is the time to nurture myself. This is the time, like, not making a decision now. I have like a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old son. And they know, like, they just pop things on the table like, Mum, can you give me a decision on this, give me a decision on this. But they just put it there for me to come back to them when I've got clarity around it. So that's the emotional authority. It kind of sounds hard and complicated, but it's really not once you get the hang of it. It's just about running the experiment. And then there's others that are very simple in comparison to the emotional authority, like a sacral authority. A sacral authority is literally in every moment. Whatever happens in your external reality is like, I've got energy for this. I don't have energy for this. It's just paying attention to what you do and don't have energy for. Now, to kind of hopefully keep it as simple as possible for someone like you, for your design, because you're a manifesting generator, although your final say comes from your emotional authority, you also have a defined sacral. So that means that you're going to feel this, yep, I have energy for it. No, I don't, all the time. You're going to feel that constant response going on in your body all the time. So it's just letting that be there. And then for the big decisions, you want to just sleep on it. You just want to give yourself a little bit more time, because all of a sudden you'll just have that, oh, it's that. You'll just have that clarity drop in. Does that resonate?
It definitely does. And I have attributed it to just, I've said I work in waves. And so I'm like, is it my cycle?
Yes.
Is it this? But regardless of what it is, because right now I'm breastfeeding, I'm not even having a cycle. So like, it's just everything's up in the air. But I know immediately, like, right now I'm actually in one of my high states. I tend to get like that towards the end of the year. But for me, it's like, well, it's not necessarily the 28-day cycle, because it'll often be like 3 or 4 months, and then a couple of months of more of a low, and not like a depressive low, but just I feel like it's in creation mode versus receptive mode. Creation and then like processing. And that's when I stopped beating myself up for that, because like you mentioned in the beginning of this episode, how you used to just kind of beat yourself up for being all over the place. I did too. I recently mentioned this on an episode. There were a few different like moments of life where I'm like, oh, and one of those moments was realizing that phrase, jack of all trades, but a master of none. I always was just like, that's me. And then I realized the rest of the phrase was, is oftentimes better than master of one. And so I was like, people have just been cutting that in half and giving it the opposite meaning of what it is. And so that combined with learning that people work in waves and being okay with that, and then leaning into that and seeing how much I could actually create. Whereas before I would be like, I feel really fired up, but I know myself, this isn't going to last and I'm not going to finish it. And I'd have all of these negative affirmations in my mind. Whereas now it's just like, okay, I'm in a high. I better get as much done as I can quickly. That way, when I'm in that lower state, the processing state, I have everything kind of set up to be there in peace.
Yeah. And that's so perfectly said, because, and we call them the emotional waves, like we all have very specific waves depending on what energy plugs in our solar plexus. And they're like waves within waves within waves, so some of them can happen over a week, some of them happen over a month or 3 months or 5 years. Like there's all these big cycles. And that's exactly, I love to hear that, because that's exactly the way that you're designed to be. I know for me, I'm the way my entire business is set up is that I'm a sprinter. So I love to work hard for 3 days. Like I will just bust my ass. I really enjoy it. And then I just want to do nothing for the rest of the week, because that's the way my energy works. And that's got a lot to do with being an emotional authority. So again, like these are the things that we would never have focused on. And people find it hard enough to give themselves permission to do that. For you, luckily, you've given yourself permission to be like, well, that's just the way my energy works. But most people don't. So human design is ultimately that permission slip. It just gives us the permission slip to go, oh, really? And I hear this all the time, like, it's on paper, so it must be real. Like, it feels real in me, it resonates, and someone else is telling me it's true. It's the permission that I needed. And that's really the key, is that when we have the full permission to be who we are, the manifesting generators like us that are designed to we've got a bit of that getting things moving, getting things started, that creative energy, but we also have that multi-passionate part of us. But the thing is that when we are in alignment with our design, then we call in the right people. We call in the people that finish the thing, or we call in the people that support us where we have no energy for it because our cycle's like, that's not our thing. So, and all types, everybody works this way. At the end of the day, like, when we can align to our design and we can trust it, then all of a sudden the doors open up that you never knew were even there.
It goes back to what you said earlier about how often we're in resistance with ourselves. And so many of us are consumed with self-doubt in at least one area of our lives, if not all of them, to where we have this like pull that we're meant for something more, but we keep talking ourselves out of it, or even have an intuitive feeling that this is what's going on with us, but we talk ourselves out of it. And it's funny because when I was a newbie to self-development, there were certain phrases that would come up and I was in resistance to those. Some examples were safe space. I'm like, what are these fluffy words we're using? Another one was permission. I'm like, what do you mean? Who needs permission for anything? And I only started fully understanding it when I started embodying it. And there were areas in my life, there always have been, where I have a lot more self-doubt than others. But there are certain areas of my life where, since I was a child, I just seem like I'm exuding confidence. And for a long time, I was just in my own world with that. And it was just like, whatever. And it wasn't until I started really focusing on, instead of just myself, my place in the world, like how I integrated with everything else. And I started to realize that there were certain times where that energy, that confidence was giving people permission. And that was the first time I really understood it, was when I watched how it was affecting other people. And I was like, oh, I'm stepping into this. And now all of a sudden this person over here feels like they can too. And some people had even said that to me, like, thank you for this. Like, I didn't even know you could be this way, or whatever it was. And it reminds me of something you said in our session yesterday, where when you were talking about healing mental health, which I'd also like to get into because it's an area that people don't often think to apply something like this. But you said that my type really learns and integrates through helping others, whereas your type learns and integrates by really focusing on the specifics of yourself. Can you explain more about that?
Yep, absolutely. And I was thinking of exactly that. It's that transpersonal versus personal piece. And I'll talk to that a bit. The other piece I just want to quickly respond to is that confidence piece. People say to me all the time, and this is exactly the same as what you've just said. I say, wow, you're so confident. And I'm like, wow. Because as a kid, I was so shy, like so shy. Confident was not a word that you would have used for me. And if I ask myself, am I confident? Yep, I suppose I am. But it's not that. It's actually, I'm authentic. I know who I am. I know who I am. And that's where confidence really comes from, and in those moments for you, what you're saying, what I'm hearing is these were areas of your life that you knew who you were. You knew what you wanted, how to turn up. You didn't question yourself. And that's what confidence is all about. Like, I am quite willing to make mistakes. I'm not bothered by that. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. So a lot of confidence comes from just being ourselves and knowing who we are and being like, yep, I am 100% enough. I'm enough. Even though I'm imperfect, we are all perfectly imperfect. So yeah, I just wanted to respond to that. Yes. So the profile. So if you guys out there listening, you've got your human design, you know what your profile is. The profile is the two numbers that you're going to have. Melissa is a 6'2" and I am a 3'5". Okay. So when you have the big number first, then you're a transpersonal profile, which is what Melissa is. Then I am a personal profile because I've got the small number first. So what this tells us at a really high level is that I am focused on my journey first, small number first, my journey first. So when I was healing my mental health, I focused on me. So I read all the books that I needed. The first thing I focused on was the science of happiness. So understanding the brain and neuroplasticity and all of these things. So I focused on that for me. But for you, being a transpersonal person, the more you focus on you, it's almost the more lost you get. You're like, I can't get that elusive clarity. I don't know. But the moment you focus on someone else, like in the mental health example, is when you maybe you have a friend that's struggling with mental health, and you're struggling with mental health, not that you are, but just as a metaphor. Then in helping them, in reading the books for them, in guiding them, you in turn heal yourself. So yeah, it's a really powerful frame of mind, because for me, I have a lot of energy, a lot of what we call in human design tribal energy. So there's this part of me that really focuses outward on the family, the community, all of those things. However, if I do that too much, I feel derailed. Like I feel like a little bit adrift. And for you, it's going to be the other way around. Like when you're in these times where you are creating, if you're too dialed into your specific journey, then you're going to feel a little bit derailed. You're going to feel a little bit unclear. So it's just another place where we're like, right, I know where to at least focus my energy, because focus is the most powerful thing that we have as humans, because what we focus on determines our identity, our beliefs, the language we use, and ultimately how we create our external reality and how we create the planet that we're living on right now. So when we know where to powerfully place our focus in a way that's going to grow and evolve ourselves and the human race, like that's the ultimate gift.
I mentioned this in our session yesterday, but it's so interesting to me how I figured that out, but had no idea how it related to my type. I didn't know what human design was back in my early 20s, but a close friend had died by suicide when I was in high school, and I was angry at him. It feels off-putting now that I say it, but at the time, it was this whole, like, it felt like manipulation. He was like putting it in our faces for a while, and we thought he was just like manipulating us. And then he went through with it, and I was just broken because I not only felt guilty, but it also was like, it was teenagers, like it was this bad breakup with my best friend and like all this stuff where, teenagers can be with their emotions and everything, and nobody thinks that that's going to happen. And then he did when he called her on the phone, and it was just this horrible situation. But I remember being like, wow, like you wanted to just get back at her that badly, which again doesn't make sense now, but at the time I couldn't really comprehend the actual sequence of events. And even though I moved on, sort of, there was something inside me that there was a blockage from that. It was one of my first traumas that kind of stacked up on each other in a short period of time. And it's what I see now was one of the things that really closed me off to my emotions, to my body, to my feelings. But as I was in an active downward spiral, I did do a couple things that helped me. And one of those was I volunteered at a suicide and crisis counseling center as one of the people who answered the phones. And it gave me a lot of understanding. Helping other people, going through that training program, helped to heal that wound with my friend, helped me to understand what state of mind he must have been in, why the crisis mindset wasn't allowing him to come to other conclusions, things like that. And from that moment on, I knew when I am going through something, the fastest way for me to heal from it is helping somebody else. So almost immediately after, or actually while I was volunteering at the Suicide and Crisis Counseling Center, I decided to volunteer at the Rape Crisis Counseling Center because it was something else that I was working through from years before. And that was a huge help in just overcoming. But like I said, I had no idea anything about human design, what that was coming from. I just knew that transformation was so quick after helping somebody else. And even just after the very first phone call I was able to answer, even after the first few training modules before I even got to answer phone calls, because you're working with like case studies and things like that. And so to this day, it's part of the thing that I wrote down when I was figuring out my purpose in life, how I wanted to serve. And I realized that starting a podcast and a public platform, it's like I could take emails from people. What do you need? And then find the right guest and have these conversations where I'm ultimately serving other people. And at the same time, it's serving myself.
I love that. And, the podcast example is perfect as well, because your podcast is all about, answering other people's questions, like learning for the other ultimately. And my podcast is all about my journey with human design and how I take it out into the world. So I think that ultimately with human design is if you sit down with someone as a human design expert or reader or coach or guide or whatever, and someone sits in front of you and goes, "Oh, that's a surprise," something's not right. Like, that's not what happens, because what happens is that you share this person's design with them, and every time it's like, "Oh my God, I knew that. Oh my God, I knew that. Oh, yep. Yes, that's me. Yes." And it's this real resonance of truth. And you can't make that stuff up. Like, there's no way I can know what's going on in someone's life or how they're designed to learn or to, heal their mental health. Like, but this guidebook can give me a really good idea to empower them so that they can do that for themselves. And that's ultimately, from my perspective, what all the work I do is all about. And again, it's in my design that it's about empowering the individuals to become their own guru. Like, it's important that we understand that the power does lie within us, that we actually can access all of these answers, that we are all divinely guided, that we all have these incredible superpowers, that this conditioning piece that we've carried around and will continue to carry around because it's the way our brain works. However, we get the choice to recondition all of it. We get the choice to live in alignment if we can just work through our darkness, that we can work through our fears, we can work through these challenges, just like you were explaining with your trauma in the past. And ultimately, like, human design's just the map. Like, it can give you the fast road, but in so many cases, you're going to find people a good way through their development, like whether it's personal or spiritual development, and they're already aligning to their design. That's what happened with all of my clients before I integrated human design. And then after, I noticed that I'd already been coaching them closer to their natural design. Ultimately, so many people don't have that self-awareness. So human design really helps people get the self-awareness that you need to just lean into who you are and to heal the things that you need to heal so you can access your greatest potential.
Well, thank you so much for bringing all of this. I've done a couple of episodes over the years, but something about your way of explaining things gave me this deeper understanding and kind of touched on pieces that I didn't even know I was missing. So for listeners that are really resonating with you and want to learn more about where to connect, where to maybe have a session with you, where's the best place for them to do that?
So the best place is just head over to my website, which is emmadunwoody.com. And if you want to check out your chart, you can go and get your free chart. And if you do that on our website, we'll also send a lot of support over a period of time. Not all at once, we won't overwhelm you, but just support to help you unpack your design. And then, of course, heading over to my podcast, which is the Human Design Podcast, where I break down everything really simply, really easily. It's super important for me to make human design simple because people pick it up and they do it when it's simple. So that's my whole ethos, to make it as easy to integrate for everyone who comes to human design.
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/327. So I guess what makes most sense for a challenge this week is to find out your human design type. There are tons of free tools online that'll guide you through a series of questions and get you pretty close. What I've learned with human design is you can go as deep as you want to get. And the insights I've learned about myself have been really helpful. I think the most profound insight was around how I allow the universe to meet me where I am. So many of success books, productivity books are all about pushing. And I've learned that it is okay to let the universe come to me. What I need to do is get really clear on what it is that I want to create. And once I do that, it's like things start to fall in my lap. I used to beat myself up for that because I'm like, am I working hard enough? And now I know that's just how I move through the world. So let me know how it goes. I want to know your type. Reach out to me on Instagram at mindlovemelissa. You can find all of my amazing sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors, plus all of the awesome discount codes that those sponsors have provided. You can find more information about the Mind Love membership at mindlove.com/membership. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.